Hello, I'm Scott Soshnick.
And I'm Eben Novi-Williams, and this is the Don't Bet on It sports business podcast, the Sporticast.
I like simple. I get it. I mean, everybody knows the big stories. What's going on? I thought you might go a little personal there. Like we're a little time constrained. We're doing 25 minutes today, tops. You have a hard out. You're in a conference room where the people are going to be barging in. We had to read sponsor, promo first. Hello, City National Bank. Hello, Todd Barak. Appreciate the support as always coming up. And my boys at StubForge, I love it. We are going to incorporate StubForge in our events. I love the idea of giving out tickets with promo codes and things on it and have our parts. What do you think about having a giant ticket where all the speakers sign it? And then we frame it and we put it up, and for all our events, it'll be a nice little commemorative thing, right?
Like a giant check, essentially.
Yeah. But exactly. I won't try and cash it, but we just have a giant ticket. We'll put it behind glass and we'll put it in your office. Where is your office? Where's your office?
If you find it, tell me.
Exactly. When I find it, I'll let you know. Yeah. All right. So we got more players, like one player baseball being suspended for life, 4 players being suspended for a year, and Eben, for the life of me, I shouldn't say I don't understand. I do understand. Player got in deep and then had to bet on his own sport or pass along to. I do get it. But I just don't get it. You know what I mean? I just don't get it. This is the fear. We knew this was probably happening beforehand, but with the rise of sports betting and it is sort of a wash in ads and parlays and in-game bets and just all of it, you're going to see more and more of this. And the leagues have got to be scared as bejesus, but can't be surprised.
Yeah, so there's a few layers to this conversation, and I think the first 2 layers are not deep enough to encapsulate the actual truth. So every time you see these stories, and in the past week, we've had an update in the Shohei Ohtani gambling scandal. We had an update in...
Wait, say the interpreter. Go ahead on how much you love it.
Mitsuhara.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Practice makes perfect.
An update in Jonte Porter, the NBA player who has been suspended for suspicious betting on his own props. And then, as you said,
on your own prop.
Players,
oh, God.
Yeah. And the one of the initial backlashes, the things you see a lot from fans on social media and in conversations I've had, is that, like, of course this is going to happen. All these leagues are getting in bed with sports betting companies. And I think that's a little superficial. And then
it's been happening.
One step deeper, you get these people who are like, there's been betting on sports long before U.S. legalized it nationwide, or started the process of legalizing it nationwide 6 or 7 years ago. And these players should know at this point they're not allowed to do that.
It's posted in the clubhouse, posted in the locker room.
It's true, and there's a lot of outreach happening. But I also think that misses a lot of the nuance of what's happening here.
Whoa. This is sports and talk and discussion. There's no room for nuance and brains. What are you talking about?
Bringing nuance to sports business.
Yeah. Come on.
I think the truth is that there's something in the middle here. And a few things jump out to me. One being, yes, for essentially since online betting was a thing, people have been able to online bet illegally in the U.S. going back decades. And I'm sure there were many, many players who were doing that via offshore books, doing that via illegal bookies, etc. One thing that has changed is these micro bets and the way in which they have proliferated. I don't believe there was really a way 15 years ago for a Major League Baseball pitcher, if he wanted to,
he will go less than 3 innings today.
The first pitch of the 3rd inning is going to be a ball. Right. That's not something that you were really able to bet on in any widespread form, illegally or legally, in the U.S. 15 years ago. Now it's actually quite common.
Although remember, you had the manager who was making bets on his team, and they had the bullpen phone. A lot of this ain't really thought out, if you know what I mean.
But there is a nuance in that the illegal and legal markets have changed recently, and in their push towards micro bets, live betting, which take shorter time to settle, so you lose money faster, is essentially the answer. In their push towards that, it has opened the door to types of bets that athletes were not able to get involved in previously, but that you look at and you could see, an athlete thinking to himself, it's undetectable, which is wrong.
If I just missed this free throw, right?
Yeah. A world where that's possible. 2, you can also see a world where an athlete thinks to himself, this is not material to the game. Whether I throw an intentional ball once in one inning in my
Right.
6 innings of pitching, I'm not really changing the integrity, which is also wrong, to be totally clear. But you could see a world where those things opening up opens itself up to more athletes thinking about this. The second thing, which you mentioned and seems to be the case in Jonte Porter's, the way in which a lot of athletes who end up either betting on themselves or passing information on to professional bettors, it's very often, and there's documentation about this in soccer, but it's a slow process. You meet somebody and they're, you become friendly with them, and then they ask you one question and you tell them without thinking about it, and then suddenly they come back to you a couple months later and they're like, look, you've been passing me information that
Once
I've
you've
been
done
betting on
something a
for
little
years.
wrong, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I'm either going to tell your coach or
In
tell your
fishing,
team or tell your
fishing,
league,
it's called setting the hook.
or exactly. So there's a lot of that. You also see, which is the case in Jonte Porter's, from what we know this week, he got into it, owed some people a lot of money, and this was his way of settling his debts. Was telling them, look, this game I'm planning to leave the game due to injury or illness, whatever it is. I'm not going to play the second half or whenever he's planned to come out. All of my under bets are going to hit because I am going to come out of this game before I hit them. Which appears to be what happened, and his co-conspirator won, I think, $40,000 in one of these games, according to the.
But that's what this. I mean, do they not understand that this is what the software is designed to catch?
Yes, this is if the average people betting on Jonte Porter is $2,000 in a night, and suddenly someone places a $40,000 bet. Yeah, this is exactly what the software is designed to catch. So there is some, I think there is some misunderstanding from athletes. There is some misunderstanding from leagues even about the way in which all this happens. But yeah, I think it's way more complex. It's way more complex than athletes should know better. And it's also way more complex than this has been available to athletes for a long time and nothing's changed.
Yeah. Boy, that was like a soliloquy. Every time
we get,
I'm
sorry, I didn't.
No, that's okay. I mean, we said we got tight 25 minutes. Why don't you just take half of it? Every time we talk about nuance, you got to show off and be like, I'm going to talk for a while here. I'm Mr. Nuance. That you know what? Eben Nuance Williams. There it is.
There you go. Well, I'll take some nuance away now, just
Good.
to have some fun. I don't know.
Let's go hardcore sports radio. Let's yell at each other about Caitlin Clark. This will be fun.
Well, real quick before we move on to Caitlin Clark, I don't know if you read any of the details of this Padres player who was just banned for life from Major League Baseball.
I know he wasn't betting a whole lot. I know that. It's like, what are you doing?
He was not betting a lot. One thing that was happening, he had bet on Pirates. He'd bet on 25 Pirates games. I think he did not played in any of them. So again, there's a little bit of nuance there. He was winning 4.3% of his bets.
I was saying he was really bad at it. Yeah.
Like that is, I mean, I'm assuming these were all like massive 10-leg parlays that had crazy high odds, but to win 4.3% of your baseball related bets, that is
if you were trying, right? You couldn't lose or win 4% of your bets.
These are loaded parlays because again, an octopus would pick at probably 46% or something like that.
What's that dog on Twitter I see that always shoots it into the hampers like every time there's a 7-game series? That dog would do way better.
The World Cup picking octopus, just like silly things like that.
Octopus are very smart animals.
But yeah, the athletes, many of the athletes we've seen get caught, like this player. Tucupita Marcano, or even Calvin Ridley, who was a star in the NFL when he got caught. When you look at what they're betting, the volume and the numbers, it's really small. Right? Calvin Ridley was placing a couple $1,000 bets on games he was not playing in, but he was on the team at the time, the Falcons. I think that one of the things, again, some of the sticker shock you see when you read these stories is how consequential and how obviously consequential these actions are for what is not a lot of money when all is said and done.
Now I'm sitting here, as you're once again giving me Eben Nuance Williams, I'm sitting here going, our listeners going, I think Scott has begun to complete abdication of having to say any difficult names or like, who's associated with this story? Like Eben, who is that guy again?
Ippei Mitsuhara.
Yeah, Ippei Mitsuhara. And no, this guy, the betting guy that you just said, I think we're going to, I'll put that on you. Yeah, him. I think we're going to put that on you as well. That's a new rule. I don't have to remember the names. That's good. I like it. So, you want to yell at each other now?
Caitlin Clark.
I can do Caitlin Clark. Yeah. Because I feel like we should, in honor of Pat McAfee, we should just yell silly stuff at each other. I mean, the business of sport debate, sort of. I'm wondering, do you have to? Are we at the place now where whether it's my friend Stephen A, whether it's Pat, where it has to be dialed up and ratcheted up to a level each time that surpasses the last to get attention. Like, really, I saw Pat say, and look, I get the show. It's not my cup of tea. I don't listen to a lot of Barstool stuff, but I mean, I get it. Like, he had to know. What did he say that, what he said about Caitlin Clark? Well, he meant it in a complimentary way.
yeah.
Like, this goes beyond my that goes beyond my comprehension. Like, what?
Yeah.
So he has to apologize, but it's like, I guess it's just continuing sort of this Caitlin Clark economy of there's this just micro inspection of everything that is associated with her, the team, the wins, the losses right now, and it's just kind of gotten out of hand.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a lot of dumb conversation out there, and then again, I was going back to nuance. That's the theme of the show. I also think there's some interesting nuance to this conversation, which is the blending of people, fans, and journalists who have covered the WNBA for years when it was not the hot.
Resent the newcomers even like daring to voice an opinion,
clashing with traditional, much bigger male-dominated media that haven't covered the WNBA almost at all, if at all, in the past few years. Now suddenly coming in and, in my opinion, spitting the same dumb drivel takes that they do for men's basketball and for the NFL, right? The ESPN.
Well, that's the rub. That's the rub. It's those who have been there don't understand that the conversation around the more established sports or whether they've been sitting courtside for a decade is just as dumb as the thing they're saying now.
That's exactly
about the WNBA.
Yeah. There's that classic meme of the frog sitting in the house that's on fire and the dog, and he's like, "This is fine," right? The bigger sports leagues, their fans have been gradually indoctrinated into the idea that ESPN's quote unquote coverage, particularly on television, has devolved into Pat McAfee and Stephen A. Smith and people of that ilk offering fiery takes on
create the controversy and then have all the platforms discuss the artificial controversy that was created on a different platform but under the same umbrella.
So that happened gradually in all of the big sports. It happened in a week, probably overnight, maybe even in the WNBA. So suddenly diehards, both on the media side and the fan side, went from not having really any of that, having their own thing in the W, its coverage and its fandom, to suddenly having this layered on top immediately. And that, I think, is actually is what's happening right now in the WNBA, and the hard foul that the woman on the Chicago Sky gave to Caitlin, and the reaction to that, and then the reaction to the reaction from Stephen A. Smith and what Pat McAfee said, which I don't think anyone else at ESPN could get away with in the way in which he said it. There's a whole bunch of other layers to it, but the main thing to me, is just that the bad takiness of most sports coverage has just been dumped on the WNBA in a very fast way, and I think rightfully so, and in a very interesting way. And there's gender and there's race conversations happening here as well, but in a very interesting way, people are pushing back against it.
Inundated with idiocy. How about that? Well, if it's, C2 will go inundated with idiocy. I squared.
The way that I think about it is like, imagine if an NBA fan was in a coma for the past 15 years and woke up and turned on ESPN and heard the way that the Skip Baylesses and Stephen A. Smith are covering the league, would be like, what the heck is this? Like, get out of here, guys.
Why are they talking about the WNBA? Right.
Yeah. And in some weird way, it's a bad metaphor, but in some weird way, I think that's kind of what's happening to the W at this moment.
Oh, I love if you go back though, and let's take it from sort of the business of sport angle. Like, the argument we've heard for years was treat the women's sports equally.
Yeah.
Like, and let's see, then we'll see what the metrics say. And you really have to love to sort of, whether it's the softball or volleyball, the numbers are astronomical. Put it on the major network, not on, not on a sister network, not on a smaller network. Don't put it on at 1 PM on a weekend. Put it at prime time on the over-the-air network. You're seeing this consistency now of treated evenly, the eyeballs are there. And I still wonder how much of sort of the knuckle drag population out there, what's the argument now? Like, no, it was simple. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to see. Now, faced with the data that obviously debunks that proclamation, now what?
I think the reductionist argument is that it's all temporary.
Okay.
That this
The
is a
reductionist argument. I like that. That sounded
this is a
very
blip.
Hamilton-esque.
Caitlin Clark is not that good. She's tons of turnovers. Once people realize that this isn't Iowa all over again, they're going to turn away. That's my feeling, and I see not nearly as much as other people do in our
Well, but
industry. But I
look
see
at
a
the
decent amount of
attendance. The
this
attendance of Caitlin Clark
on
games
social
is like
media.
double some of the others.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
And Leo Messi and MLS, huge boost in the middle of last year. It was all anyone in the sports world was talking about. Way less interest now, right? So I think people may point to something like that and say, look, a star comes into the league and suddenly it lifts all boats for a while. What's the long-term effect? We don't know yet in MLS. We
Well,
certainly don't know yet in WNBA.
I would look at least from the dollars and cents point of view, which is where we look at everything. One, there's two big buckets that I think you need to start at. One is media.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And we know the new media deal are coming for the NBA, and we know the WNBA is coming up at the perfect time as well. Yep. We know that is going to be significant X over where they are. So, I mean, that's a given that revenue is coming. Then you look at sponsorship, which is number 2. Mm-hmm. And if there's really been an examination of sort of how do we allocate, what's the ROI, who does the spend, who controls the family, the spend, this is a smart play. The brand loyalty, you've seen it from NASCAR, you're seeing it from fans of women's sports as well, and you also are poised to see brands like Google, Ally, others spending big time on women's sports. Like that is a faucet that will not be kind of free flow to drip, drip, drip. That is not. So we have the two biggest buckets anyway. We've seen sort of look at the Kansas City Current, where now we're talking facilities and real estate growth around it, an entertainment district around it, a women's only venue. Okay, let's check that box. That's going to work. Now what? We know of sports owners in WNBA and some of the others who are looking to bring on now sophisticated investors, some more capital coming in. I just don't even see the argument like all of a sudden, okay, I sampled it for 3 weeks and we're done. I just don't see it. I just don't understand that argument. I mean, is it going to be skyrocket? I don't know. But certainly a sustained level of high interest. Are we talking Super Bowl, NFL? Of course not. No, nothing is. Nobody is. Let's be clear about that. We're not talking about the other leagues in the same realm as the NFL either. But in the life cycle, you have to look at it as in the life cycle of where the league is and where revenue is. Man, I don't even think of, what did you call it? What was I'm sorry, give me your proclamation. What was it?
What, the reductionist argument?
Yeah, your reductionist argument. There you go.
Not my argument, to be totally.
The argument that some are making, like if we are, kind of really grabbing on and saying, okay, I'm gonna knuckle drag it through. Oh well, this won't last. Okay, It's just Caitlin. It's I think I do smell it whiffs of desperation there.
Yeah. And if you look at the WNBA in its almost 30 years of existence, if you look at attendance in the league, it's a big U curve, right? The first couple years were huge, and the league, at least up until this season, had not gotten even close back to those numbers.
Yeah.
So again, I think you can in some ways there is in leagues like this, things ebb and flow depending on kind of what's hot, what's not, what's new, what's not, etc.
I just want to be clear that you said ebb and flow, not ebb and flow.
Ebb and flow, yeah.
Okay,
just underscoring the point.
Yeah, I just want to. Oh, God Almighty! Oh, more nuance. By the way, early years of WNBA, year 1, my friend Hal Biegas, he brought me to a game early on. We sat behind Joan Jett, had a great time. So don't say I wasn't there.
Liberty, I assume.
Yep. Don't say I didn't sample early on, but I think
exactly.
But
Scott's
it is
been there for 30 years.
Yes, I was there. No, very funny. This is a funny one, and also a gauge of like who does what and who takes advantage of opportunities. Years ago, man, I don't remember which finals it was, but we were in San Antonio, and the leagues always invite you to hang out with the executives, whether sometimes they're community events, and so this was happened to come to the arena on one of the nights before the series started or in between, whatever it was, for the WNBA game. And if memory serves, and I'm getting really old to this point, I could be a little off, but I might have been one or two journalists that showed up to hang out and spend the entire day with David Stern, Russ Granick, Adam Silver, and the rest, and just sort of take it in and have early discussions as to the WNBA, their thoughts on where it was at the time and where it was going. Just invaluable stuff for a conversation like this. If you're sitting with the architects of the league and understanding their vision and really understood why they were doing it and how they were trying to build it.
And now, flash forward, you've got the owners of the Warriors, the most valuable basketball team on the
Yep.
planet, buying in $50+ million expansion fee. You've got
You're gonna have your Valkyrie T-shirt. You're gonna
MLSD.
have Valkyrie T-shirt. I can see you doing that.
Maybe, yeah, we'll see. You've got Major Maple Leaf Sports and
Larry,
Entertainment.
no, 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 no. You have no. You don't. You have Larry Tannenbaum.
Larry Tannenbaum, sorry, not
Larry
MLSD, but the
Tannenbaum, not
ownership.
Maple Leaf Sports and
Yeah.
Entertainment.
Um,
Nuance matters, Novi Williams. Thank
Good
you.
correction. Good correction. You've got another, again, a prominent owner executive in Toronto buying in. There's going to be other expansion as well. I think the WNBA is doing a fairly good job, at least right now, of capitalizing on this momentum. And
I
yeah,
mean,
we'll see in a couple of years what it looks like. But I saw this the other day, which actually interested me. I can't remember what team it was, but they had announced the biggest attendance they had ever had, and it was not a Fever game. So I think it was the Chicago Sky were in town. That's Angel Reese's team. But
even that gets taken out of context, by the way. Did you see, like, Angel was saying, hey, it's not just Caitlin. Like, they come to see me too.
Yeah.
And that, but then the soundbite ended there for those that were looking to make a point.
Yeah.
Like, if you roll it like 15 seconds forward, she was like, and those became before, and we owe them. And there's a whole lot of people to see. I'm like, oh my God, stop with the artificial insanity, please. There was nothing to criticize from Angel Reese.
Perfect example of like the takiness, like small bite way that sports gets consumed now. Because you're right, she was getting dragged online for saying they come to
making
see
it all about her,
and not saying us. And then literally the next thing out of her mouth just didn't happen to be in the clip that went viral. Is her talking about all the others, right? So yeah, again, I think it's in some weird perverse way, I think the WNBA is running up against just the way that mainstream sports is covered now.
All right. Well, I know you're going to get kicked out of the room you're in. So, like, the two things we were like blurbing and maybe talking about in the time we have left, I think maybe Melo be the way to go. But Man City suing the EPL, I think that's interesting. You know, it's sort of how sponsorship is treated in associated parties or related entities to the team, and
media in the UK calling this a civil war for the future of the Premier League. So I do think it's a big deal in terms of how teams are able to monetize, how they're able to pay, and what caps come in place. And real quick before we move on, just you and I both laughed at this. Part of their
here comes the quote. I love it. Yeah, good.
Is the decisions in the Premier League apparently require 14 of the 20 teams to agree. Man City apparently called that quote the tyranny of the majority, end quote, which for so many reasons I think is an all-timer of a comment, especially coming from Man City. So
I would like to see King Charles should own a team. Like King Charles should own a team, and then we know about the tyranny of the
pesky
many.
Majority.
Yeah, the pesky majority.
Very tyrannical. Yeah.
But can I go back to David Stern for a second? He used to have a great line where somebody's like, "Well, isn't it a democracy or whatever?" And he was like, "Yes, it's a democracy of one." That's the tyranny of the. Yeah, there's your tyranny of one. Yeah, exactly. All right, but why not?
What's your take on Melo buying into NBL, the Australian and New Zealand Basketball League?
Well, it's hard now knowing what MLS has become and what the deal has like. But the first thing that came to mind, because he bought into the rights to a future expansion team.
Yep.
So the analogy that hits me right away was David Beckham.
Interesting. Yeah.
It was just sort of prospecting down the line what this might be worth, but you're getting sort of the equity of Melo's name now, and he's getting the right to a future expansion team. Beckham had the right. He bought the Miami team for $25 million.
Yeah.
And by the way, at the time, MLS probably thought they had the deal of the century. 25 mil for great. Oh my God, our teams are worth what? A fraction of that.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, 25. That might be 10x what a team's ever worth. Now, I mean, we know what happened there. Do I think an NBL team's going to go for 200 million, whatever it may, $1 billion? No. But hey, there are NBA players that have been there, and Sean Marion was involved, and who knows? Global game. Who knows where it's going? Those are also, by the way, real estate plays in Melbourne and other places.
Global game is the thing that jumps out to me, right? The growth of the sport of basketball in Australia and New Zealand, but also in China and other parts of East Asia. The NBL gets talent from there increasingly. They are also an option for stars who are going to be in the NBA but are not quite ready yet. And time zone wise, it fits way better than the NBA for a lot of those countries that we're talking about. To me, that's the opportunity. Is the NBA is going to be the king forever, probably, but Basketball is growing as a global sport. It has the NBL has a very nice geographical advantage in some ways in that world. And yeah, you don't need this to become an NBA franchise valuation for this to make sense for Carmelo. He's an international brand himself. I'm sure his name goes a long way in a lot of the places and markets that the NBL really cares about. But yeah, it will be interesting looking back on this, the way that we can look back on David Beckham, as you said, and see just how great a deal that was. Honestly, maybe for both parties, right? I don't think MLS would go back and change that deal maybe necessarily that much either, if that's what it took to get him from Europe over to LA. But yeah, will be interesting to look back on this in some years and see how the Melo NBL deal played out.
Very funny. I don't know. Let me know if anybody's knocking on your door, but how funny would it be knowing human nature, right, just for fun, knowing human nature? Let's say we could go back, time machine it back, or Superman flying, whatever, counterclockwise around there. We go back to right before they're signing that deal. I would wager that MLS folks would be like, you know what? I think 50 million. Knowing what they know, totally armed with what the future holds, that it's a great deal, that what that will be, what that will lead to, and Messi and Apple and global, somebody's going to get greedy and say, I don't think 25 is enough. But if you do that, you do risk the whole thing falling apart and Beckham never happening. It
would be such a great question to ask David if this was a throwaway, if this was a sticking point, how much that specific clause and his thinking about the future really hung on those negotiations.
I thought it was it's just sort of to take a flyer. Like, why not?
Yeah.
Right. It's the 2%, Bitcoin in your portfolio. Oh, somebody trying to get you out.
Unfortunately, that is it for the Sportcast for today. He is Scott Soshnick. You can find him on
Wow,
Twitter,
they're breaking in.
at Soshnick. You
didn't even mention our friend Matt Walsh, New Zealand Breakers.
Williams.
Didn't even mention Matt. Yeah, tell him Matt.
Matt.
Andrew Gaze? Try and close. Nod your head. You know Andrew Gaze? You know the name Andrew Gaze?
Not
even nodding. Nothing.
Cora Veltman would like you to know.
Luke Longley.
The show at
Andrew Gaze? Quick. Andrew Gaze. Just nod. Give me a signal. Andrew Gaze. Yes, I recognize the name or not.